Video game worlds just keep getting more and more realistic. Stuff is possible today that I would have never imagined as a little baby bird playing Nintendo Entertainment System. And sometimes you end up finding stuff in these worlds that even goes above and beyond that. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 insanely accurate game world details discovered by players. Starting off at number 10, it's Grand Theft Auto 4's bizarrely accurate car wash ads. These games are well known for how detailed they are, and we've covered them extensively in the past, and we've discussed a ton of stuff that you could easily overlook about how realistic it is. And Grand Theft Auto 4, although it's pretty old at this point, is pretty dense with this sort of thing. Rockstar really went nuts with this game, and it shows in everything from the ragdoll physics to the car handling and everything in between. No matter how many times I talk about this one, there's always something else to find, something more obscure to uncover that's bizarrely accurate. And this one's actually pretty small, but it's such a specific thing that it's amazing they even bothered with it. For this list, we're totally dependent on the hard work done by obsessive lunatics on Reddit and YouTube finding crazy things, because God knows I did not notice this the first, second, or fifth time I played Grand Theft Auto 4, and it's not exactly the easiest game to make run on modern hardware either. So the credit for noticing this one all goes to Illumanti on Reddit, who noticed there's car washes with signs that list the prices as $5 for cars, $3 for taxis. They're really easy to overlook, but it's also totally accurate. If you drive a normal car through a lot of car washes, it's $5, and if you're a taxi, it's $3. It's like that in New York. I don't know if those prices are still like that, but it's one of those things where you don't really think about it, so it's cool that they noticed it and included it. Like, go around New York sometime. You will find signs for car washes like that. And number 9 is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. This game is so realistic, it will accurately simulate an eclipse. Like, there are an incalculable number of realistic features in this game. It is meticulously detailed in its airplanes. They're modeled down to every switch and button in the cockpit. And then, of course, there's the fact that it's set on Earth accurately. Weather patterns are accurately reproduced using meteorological data. There is an absolute insane amount of detail in your face at all times in this game. I knew about the weather thing, but I didn't know that they accurately recreated celestial events like an eclipse. Seriously, and thanks to It's Too Long It Will Runo from Reddit for finding this, if you set your time and date to the time of an actual eclipse, the game will recreate it while you are flying, or even when you're looking at the globe from space. It's not perfectly accurate because of that. You don't actually have to be in the correct spot in the world to see the eclipse, it just appears everywhere. But that's surprisingly impressive for something that just doesn't even need to be in the game at all. At number 8 is Fallout New Vegas. A guy claiming his legs are broken, and, well, they are. A funny one from Fallout New Vegas, courtesy of Reddit user Speakeasy G1887. In Nipton, you can find this guy named Boxcar, who's sitting on a chair complaining that his legs are broken. Now, in most RPGs, that would just be something the character says. It doesn't actually reflect in the gameplay, but in the Bethesda Fallout games, you can actually check the specific health on NPCs' legs by looking at them in VATs. Lo and behold, Boxcar's legs are actually broken. What's kind of amusing is this little detail isn't just developer foresight at work. They weren't clever geniuses who planned ahead to amuse their fan base here. It was actually patched into the game after launch, specifically because people were checking the guy with VATs and seeing that originally it didn't used to show that his legs were broken. Still, kudos to the devs for actually listening to the community, even if the actual issue is pretty minor in the grand scheme. It's one of those things that's small, but it does make the game feel more real, so I am glad they did it. If VATs were a thing that worked, it would have to work consistently in situations like this, so good on them. And number 7 is Horizon Forbidden West. In the cold, Aloy's fingers actually turn blue. Horizon's one of those games that's not exactly consistent when it comes to the realistic details, but the stuff it does try to be realistic with is super impressive. Mostly it's the sort of thing we've come to expect, especially from first-party Sony games, but this one little detail went mostly unnoticed for the longest time. I mean, I know I never really caught it, but it's there, clear as day. Credit here goes to Jonazofgator, which hell of a username. Wow, I had to slow down, but I'm pretty sure that's a pronounceable word. Anyway, he's the one who realized that Aloy's hands start to change color when you spend a bunch of time in colder environments. Purely cosmetic. You're never going to die from exposure no matter how poorly dressed you are for the cold weather. And Aloy is poorly dressed for the cold weather. But it's still impressive. It's a realistic detail you don't see in a lot of games. Now, what makes it even more impressive is that leaving the cold area isn't the only way to make her hands turn the proper color. You can stand by a fire, and that's enough to warm up her hands and improve circulation. For a game that can kind of feel static at times, it's a detail that's easy to miss, but it's appreciated. Even most games with actual cold weather effects don't usually bother with stuff like this, and they should. It can't be that difficult, honestly, at least in the grand scheme. I'm not saying I could do it, but yeah. At number 6 is Saints Row 2, the phone numbers that aren't just for show. Seems like this is just your stupid brainless open world game with no open world details that could ever come close to matching GTA, but Saints Row 2 will surprise you sometimes. And not just to the extent you're allowed to modify body parts in the custom character creator. And I guess that's a point where it's not very realistic, but this point is. I'm talking about the various advertisements that had phone numbers in them. It's never mentioned anywhere, but you can actually remember the numbers. See, on things like taxis, and if you call them in-game, of course, they'll come and pick you up. Like if you pick up a real phone and call that number, a taxi is not going to come to you in your PlayStation game and pick you up. That's not what I'm saying. But it's something that I didn't really know about until years after playing the game, but it's a pretty impressive bit of world building that's never necessary, but it's appreciated. Like, taxis are probably the most noteworthy thing you can call, but there's other numbers, like if you call 911, an ambulance will appear. There are a few other numbers to call floating around on signs in the world, and while none of them are required and are pretty easy to miss, it's just fun to see this sort of detail in a game. Like, it's so easy to overlook something like this. It's one of those things I did hear about somewhere before, but I gotta give credit to Tartine592 on Reddit for posting about the Cluck and Bell homie you could get with a number in the first game. Like, it was great. At number 5 in Witcher 3, the boot black cutscene changes if Geralt's not wearing any shoes. I don't know who would ever check this, honestly. It's a complete inconsequential thing, but the developers made sure that for some inexplicable reason, if Geralt isn't wearing shoes when he first talks to the boot black boy in Blood and Wine, the game is going to acknowledge it. When you talk to the kid, they of course want to shine your shoes, but if you're not wearing shoes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Of course, most games would just ignore that little contradiction and like move forward. Not Witcher 3 though.
Not wearing boots just now, but guess I could pull a pair on.
The likelihood that somebody wouldn't be wearing boots is so small, it's probably, near inconsequential. Like, honestly, who's running around in The Witcher 3 barefoot? The only reason I could think to do that is for a meme, but still, they had the wherewithal to write some special dialogue and add an animation of Geralt putting on his shoes before continuing the quest. That is dedication to accuracy and player agency, even in the most minor, easily missed way. Credit has to go to Goot KX12 on Reddit, perhaps Goot Kicks 12. I don't know. There's no way in hell I'd ever know this was a thing unless they posted about it, though.
Prefer going barefoot lately. But fine, have it your way.
Step up. Have a seat. You shan't regret it.
And number 4 is The Last of Us Part 2. At this point, most of the little details are pretty well documented from this game, but, everyone knows about the named characters, the unique heartbeats, the blood that actually pools and melts ice. Those are crazy accurate details, but there's one that went unnoticed for a long time. A YouTuber named Caitlin was the first to actually test and see this one, and they proved what actually happens. It's an incredibly minor event, might I add. When you reach the aquarium as Ellie, there's a part you can pick up a magazine, which causes a glass bottle to roll off the table and break. It's literally just a random broken bottle. It's not part of a cutscene. So it would be perfectly understandable if the game just forgot about it, but it doesn't. When you return to the same area as Abby, the broken bottle's still there. And if Ellie doesn't break the bottle isn't broken for Abby. The game remembers an extremely minor detail that nobody would remember or care about at this point, let alone look out for. It's just a testament to the accuracy of even the smallest details in this game. That stuff that nobody would even really honestly care if it wasn't like that. They do it anyway. And number 3 is Metroid Prime Remastered, the raindrops flowing differently depending on the angle of your gun. The original Metroid Prime was one of the earliest examples of a game with some really amazing details. The original put a lot of work into raindrop effects to make the experience feel more immersive, and it did some stuff that a lot of games now don't bother with. Like, if you look up, you actually see more raindrops on your visor, or if you look down, you wouldn't see any rain at all. Pretty accurate already, but the remaster took things a step further with a little detail I didn't even notice until Reddit user CrySave pointed it out. Like, look at Samus's gun arm. When you're facing forward, the rain hits in a particular way, which is normal. But here's the impressive part. If you look up, the rain hits a completely different way. Looks more like the rain's running down the sides rather than falling directly on it. That's the kind of attention to detail you almost never see in games. Like, not just that there's a special effect for rain when it hits your weapon, there's different animations depending on how you're standing. For a remaster that changes almost nothing about the game, they managed to find ways like this to make the experience even more immersive. And even though, like, the Switch hardware itself is aging at this point, it's little details like this that make it a big jump. Moving on to number 2 is in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. This one was brought to our attention by Reddit user BusyWest6974, where they're talking about Jump Force, but that game's been delisted, and the actual detail is the same in both of these games, so I'm sticking with the more well-liked and actually available game here. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an utterly insane series. The fact that the initial bad guys for the first 3 parts are vampires that are transformed by a magical stone mask is one of the more reasonable aspects about it, one of the more grounded storytelling elements. Sure, Dio is an unconventional vampire in a lot of ways, but one thing the manga made very clear is that he cannot come out during the day. That's a major plot point. I mean, it's not realistic, but in this case, the game does remain slavishly accurate to the source material, because if you want to play as Dio or one of the Pillar Men, then you can only play in stages that take place at night or are inside. Regular daytime stages, they're locked out for these guys. Fighting games never do stuff like that. In fact, most games don't. In Skyrim, if you're a vampire, you can walk around in the day, no problem. But this random anime fighter, it actually gets it right. It's not as limiting as it might sound either. There actually aren't that many outdoor daytime stages anyway, which is probably by design. JoJo Part 3 is one of the more popular of the entire series, and Dio is easily the most iconic bad guy, so you want to be able to use him in more than like a stage or two. So the game mostly has night levels and interiors. I don't know, guys. I know this isn't exactly the most real thing out there. Like, unless someone isn't telling me something, vampires don't exist. But the attention to detail here is appreciated. And if vampires were real, that would be how it would be. I mean, assuming that they can't go outside during the day. And finally, at number 1, Monster Hunter Rise's incredibly accurate taiko drummers. One of my favorite accurate details in games is when characters in game look like they're playing an instrument and like it actually looks like it. It's so easy to just make a little animation of somebody tapping random keys on a keyboard or playing random notes on a horn. So when devs go out of their way to accurately recreate someone's guitar playing in something like Cyberpunk 2077, for instance, it's really impressive to me. One game I didn't expect to show up on this list, though, is Monster Hunter Rise, the Nintendo Switch Monster Hunter game. But Snack Bar Devo Gel found on Reddit this shockingly accurate taiko drum player situation in the game's hub. They play their drums exactly to match the background music of the area, which is impressive. But what really surprised me is that if you put on a different track of music for whatever reason, the drummers will take 5 and sit the song out. They're only playing drums if you're playing the game's standard background track, which is a small, forgettable detail that does not need to be there, but it's pretty great that they actually took the time to include it. It's one of those charming little details that the Monster Hunter games are just absolutely full of, too. Usually they're goofy rather than accurate in some way, but it's one of the few times I can say in this series is just doing something realistic, and it really stands out because of it. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.